Welcome back, everybody, to the Tommy Stone Show. I hope you're doing well. Today, we have a jam-packed episode with the Iran ceasefire going on and with why I believe it was the most bogus ceasefire agreement we have ever seen in history. There are a ton of reasons why I not only think that this ceasefire is not going to last longer than maybe a month officially. I think it's going to last a lot less longer than that. But why this ceasefire had no chance of ever lasting to begin with. The first reason for this was that the ceasefire was literally negotiated on social media. Pakistan's prime minister reached out and wanted a ceasefire, and he did so on X, or formerly Twitter. Using Twitter to end one of the most important and most damaging conflicts in the modern day is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that that was the channel that we got a ceasefire from is insane. Pakistan's prime minister essentially acted as the mediator between Iran and America in order to get it open, with Iran finally agreeing to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Sounds great, right? Well, this agreement, this ceasefire that we came to, didn't include any battlefields or proxy battlefields outside of Iran directly, which meant that Israel, Wednesday morning, it was about 12 hours after the official ceasefire was agreed to, Israel dropped over 100 bombs on Lebanon, saying that it was not included in the ceasefire agreement. So to me, and I think to every single other American and pretty much every other single person in the world, that is an absolute violation of the ceasefire agreement. And to Lebanon right now, they're calling it Black Wednesday. It already has a name. It is being already classified as one of the worst days in Lebanon history because, again, over 300 people died. Apartment buildings specifically were targeted and bombed in these attacks. So we don't know what is going to come out of that. Again, Iran has now again closed the Strait of Hormuz because of these Lebanon attacks, which means, was the Strait of Hormuz ever open then for the 12 hours? I mean, that's really the big question. Will the Strait of Hormuz ever actually be open? And right now, every single finger and every single moment is pointing towards the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is not going to be open until late 2026. That seems to also be the absolute best case scenario. Right now, there are over 6,000 landmines floating in the Strait of Hormuz. 6,000! And it's estimated to take over 1 month at a bare minimum. It is going to take at least 1 month to get rid of all of these landmines, and then it's going to take another month for shippers, insurance companies, so the people who write and do all the underwriting for these massive cargo ships holding all the oil going through the Strait of Hormuz, the people insuring it, it's going to take them another month, apparently, to be able to prepare the correct contracts and the protect underwritings in order for these ships to be insured and to be able to flow through the Hormuz Strait. So we're looking at one of the most inflationary events in modern history, the Strait of Hormuz closing, being extended for the entire year. And on top of this, we just got the new CPI report telling us what the last month's inflation numbers were with this war being in full-scale effect. And we just found out that it was much more detrimental than we could have ever expected. Inflation has tripled since the beginning of 2026. And by the end of 2026, it is expected to have quintupled from where we started in the beginning, under 1%. We were expected to see 5% inflation by the end of the year when we were at under 1% in January. It is getting absolutely outrageous, the pace of inflation in America. Right now, March had 3.3% inflation alone. 3.3% inflation. And this all came from the fact that oil prices are now elevated. So every single company is now facing extended problems having to pay for their shipping costs, which means that these prices and these cost upages get dumped on the consumer. And the consumer is the one not only paying more at the pump, they're paying more at the grocery store, they're paying more every single instance of their life. And it is getting ridiculous. And again, we got this ceasefire on Tuesday of this week. Every single equity market absolutely soared. We're talking Nvidia is right now at about $190. Amazon went to $240. Coherent went from $255 to $310. I mean, we are seeing huge rips right now in the tech market because apparently the Strait of Hormuz is going to be open again and these cost upages are going to be no longer. I mean, this is an absolute lie. The Strait of Hormuz is not going to be open. And this ceasefire was Trump's last-ditch effort at saving the headlines and saving the stock market and keeping it floating while inflation for the consumer is drowning them. On top of all of this, Goldman Sachs is now placing the chance of a recession in America at 30%. And there's a lot of factors going into this. A big one is private credit right now being completely over leveraged. But a huge issue that people are worrying about is stagflation. inflation. We are seeing unprecedented amounts of inflation, and we are only seeing inflation continuing to ramp up with this war. But on top of that, like I have mentioned before, we are seeing a huge amount of jobs being completely depleted from the job market, which puts the Fed and the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell in the worst position possible. They cannot cut rates, they cannot raise rates, because doing either is going to either create more unemployment or create way more inflation. And they don't know what to do. And there actually is no correct answer. While a lot of people might think that raising and cutting interest rates is pretty cut and dry, it is actually probably one of the most difficult things to have to manage. And Jerome Powell, while a lot of people think he has done a poor job of it, he has just done a job of trying to be conservative and not jumping the gun, because we are in absolutely unprecedented times right now. Like I said, we had a ceasefire literally negotiated on Twitter. And the reason why it was posted on Twitter was because the Prime Minister of Pakistan actually accidentally posted the tweet. This wasn't like, again, it gets even worse the more you peel back the details of this ceasefire. It wasn't even like it was intended to be released. It seems like Trump saw his opportunity to actually get a ceasefire done, or a ceasefire to the public done, just to get our equity markets to rip right before this terrible inflation report comes out. Again, this inflation report is essentially saying that Trump's second term is an absolute failure in the economy, that we are only seeing rising inflation, rising unemployment, and we're only going to see rising energy costs for the rest of this year. And it gets even worse when you start to read the details of this ceasefire. Something that nobody is talking about is what makes no sense. Trump was calling for Iran to have an unconditional surrender literally on about a month ago, March 6th. He was saying this war was not going to end unless Iran came to an unconditional surrender. And then Iran presented in this ceasefire agreement a 10-point plan that was agreed to, which was essentially America just getting out of Iran and nothing happening with the regime change. Actually, nothing coming out of this war even being started. We destroyed their government, pissed off every single Iranian person for absolutely nothing. There was no benefit to this. It doesn't even make sense because Iran still controls the Strait of Hormuz. So if America isn't at least gaining the Strait of Hormuz and gaining control of the Strait of Hormuz, or at least ensuring it's going to be open like normal, then what is this ceasefire doing? And Israel, again, like I said, is still acting and attacking Lebanon because this ceasefire did not cover any proxy battlefields. Again, Lebanon has Hezbollah, and we also have Hamas in Palestine. We are still seeing attacks going on from Israel in these two places. It is not like, again, the Palestine war has kind of been on the back burner now because of the Iran war, but that is still going on. That is essentially a proxy battlefield now of the Iran war. That is just what it is. It is now a smaller conflict going on, but we still have humanitarian crises going on absolutely everywhere. And not to mention, NATO is about to collapse. Trump has been not only bashing countries online, but every single country in Europe that Trump has asked to help him in this Iran war has absolutely refused. British and Spain, they both said no at first to us using their military bases. Again, Spain reluctantly then eventually gave in, but that was after we threatened to embargo them. And they're an ally. And then Britain did the same thing. At first, they refused to let us use their military bases, and now we have some sort of weird agreement with them. But France and Germany have still refused to send any sort of troops to help us in Iran. France has also said that they're not going to send one ship to help out with the Strait of Hormuz efforts until they can guarantee its safety. Which means they're only going for what? Just to watch? They're not even helping with the effort of getting the strait open? So that means that they're not even doing, that means they're only going to watch. They're literally only going to watch. That NATO is nothing without America, and Trump has been very clear about this, and now he is just bashing them, alongside with the fact that Trump has now upped the amount of defense spending that NATO allies have to contribute because America was essentially fronting the whole load. NATO does not like America right now. They specifically don't like Trump, but they really don't like America and the precedent that America has been setting the last few years. This even goes for the Biden administration when Democrats were in office. During the Russian war, we seized all of Russia's currency, their reserves. We seized every US dollar that we could from Russia, and that made every single nation in the world realize that if America views you as a political threat, we can literally just freeze your money. Your dollars that you hold in the United States dollars, we can say that those dollars literally aren't yours anymore and we can seize them from you. But Russia survived. We thought that would completely topple the Russian economy, and they were able to survive because now Saudi Arabia is no longer selling barrels of oil in just United States dollars. They're selling it in Chinese dollars. And as we know, Russia and China are in allegiance. They do not want America to be the global superpower of the world anymore. So we're actually starting to see every single piece of the puzzle forming right now, that America is being targeted. The global superpower of the world is being targeted at every single angle, from Russia, from China, to Iran, to Venezuela, to Cuba, to every single instance in this world. It comes down to the fact that this world does not want America to be the global superpower anymore. And what's even worse is that countries like China and Russia don't even necessarily have to be too aggressive to kill America. They just have to watch us shoot us in our own foot. Like I've said before, our GDP for the last quarter was under 1%. That is terrible for GDP growth. We're also projecting, or all of 2025, we saw that the GDP growth was under 3%. And for 2026, that's really not looking any better because of this current stagflation crisis. Again, rising inflation, rising unemployment only means one thing. It means the Fed doesn't know how to cut the rates. And we don't know what happens to the economy when the Fed gets trapped. That's why Trump wants to get Jerome Powell out and he wants to put Kevin Warsh in. Because Kevin Warsh is going to listen to Trump and probably cut rates to as low as possible. Probably that's what's going to happen. I don't really see any other alternative when Kevin Warsh gets in. He wants rates to be low because that looks great for the American person. It makes borrowing a whole lot cheaper. But what's going on with companies right now? What are they borrowing money to spend on? AI. So this whole plan is going to backfire if interest rates get cut, because now companies can all of a sudden borrow at pennies on the dollar compared to what it's been like for the last few years. And all of a sudden AI spending is just going to boom even more. A lot of people like to argue that AI is currently a sunken cost fallacy, where all these companies have already invested so much money into AI that they simply cannot pull out. And that's where this bubble theory comes into play, that we are currently in a bubble waiting to pop. I completely disagree with all this nonsense. Every single company, from the tippy top Mag 7 to every single company in the Fortune 500 to your local mom and pop store on the corner of your block, they are adopting AI in some sort of way. AI is not going away. AI is only going to continue booming. AI agents like Claude and Anthropic, those types of companies, they're only seeing growth accelerating. We just saw them pass ChatGPT in revenues, Anthropic. So Anthropic is one of my favorite ChatGPT type agents as well. I love Claude. I think Claude is the best out of all of them. But again, that's neither here nor there. What's important, again, is that we're seeing the U.S. being targeted at every single angle, and Trump is not handling it correctly. He's simply targeting the headlines. All he wants is for him to look good, for his stock market to look good. He does not care about the American consumer. He does not care about inflation, or maybe he does care, but he sure as hell does not know how to handle inflation. He does not know how to handle unemployment, and he definitely doesn't know how to handle them both at the same exact time. In my opinion, we can only go one way from here. We have to continue going after China and coming at them going at their throat. China right now, by 2050 or about 2060, 1 in 3 people in China is going to be elderly. They are getting incredibly old, which means they have to get insanely rich before their population gets too old, and their shrinking workforce cannot stabilize and cannot hold up their elderly population. Because right now, their social security system or their pension system, it's already underfunded by trillions with a T, underfunded. So China's facing a huge elderly population crisis, where they have pretty much a near billion, not billion, probably about a 500 million people where they're gonna have to take care of, and they have no idea what they're gonna do with these people. They literally have no idea how they're gonna fund taking care of these people. But again, that's why China is acting so rash right now. That's why they're going after countries like Saudi Arabia, getting them to join BRICS on a silent note. Again, Saudi Arabia, what anybody tells you, is in BRICS right now, and is without a doubt one of the biggest threats to the American Constitution, to American democracy, and to the Western Hemisphere and the West itself, the Western powers, because they went from in 2020 selling only 4% of barrels of oil in non-United States dollars. Again, that's what gives the United States dollar its power, is being the petrodollar. Every single country needs to hold United States dollars in order to buy oil from Saudi Arabia. That was the agreement we made with them a long time ago in order to defend them militarily, was that they sell every barrel of oil in United States dollars to give us that infinite demand and infinite backing, where we become the world's reserve. We become every country's reserve currency, because in order for them to buy oil, they have to do it in United States dollars, which means they all have to own United States dollars. So again, Saudi Arabia is now completely undermining that. They went from selling 4% of barrels of oil in non-United States dollars to now 1 in 5 barrels of oil is not sold in United States dollars. That means the numbers have quintupled, and almost every single one of these barrels of oil that is not sold in United States dollars is sold in Chinese dollars. China is actively coming for us, and we need to absolutely continue cutting off any way they can get oil. That's why we went after Venezuela. There's a huge reason why we're going after Iran, trying to get the Strait of Hormuz controlled. There's a big reason why Greenland was being talked about for so long as well. It was because they have so many rare earth minerals that China has control over. Again, everything is a battle with China, and how can we win the resource battle with China and cut them off? And we need to do this in order to also win the AI race. In order to win the AI race, if we can slow down China's manufacturing and essentially cut off all their oil imports, that means they cannot produce AI chips and compete with America. We will win that race outright. So is this Trump acting for Silicon Valley? Is it him acting for Israel? Or is it him acting for the American people and him just having this master plan that I guess nobody can figure out? I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows. And that's the issue with this current American government and lobbying, is that we don't know who our politicians are truly acting for. We don't know if it's the checkbook that is making them lead, or if they're leading for the checkbook, and they're leading for Americans' checkbooks to be increased and for us to be able to survive and actually make a difference in what is going on in our economy and our social world. Again, people are struggling. They need more money. We just saw Walmart get burned down in California. And the guy, as he did it, was saying all you had to do was pay me a livable wage. Again, that is the issue we are on. And right now, Trump has failed this presidency and making life more affordable like he promised. And we don't know why. It could be for a whole ton of reasons, but in my opinion, it is because of lobbying. Lobbying took him away from why he started becoming our president, was to make America more affordable and to drain the swamp from those lobbyists and these corrupt politicians. He has just become one. And he is going nuts on Twitter and or on Truth Social like we've seen. Again, I've made a couple of videos on in the past about what Trump has been saying online, and it has been absolutely ridiculous, his rhetoric with Iran. This is only going to continue getting worse. So thank you so much for watching today's episode of The Tommy Stone Show. I hope you enjoyed it. There's going to be a lot more coming out recently. We have a ton of news with the Epstein files, so make sure you are subscribed to hear what happens with the Epstein files and the new updates that I have for you. Thank you all for watching. Again, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next Tommy Stone Show episode.